Story 1. I discovered my best friend's secret plan to ruin my relationship. My best friend and I had been inseparable since second grade. We shared everything: apartments, inside jokes, even passwords. When I hit the 2-year mark with my girlfriend, he gave this big speech about how he'd be my best man someday. Looking back, the signs were all there. It started with weird questions. My girlfriend worked late one Tuesday, and he asked if I felt neglected. When she bought concert tickets without asking me first, he said healthy couples always check in before spending money. Then came the articles, always randomly finding pieces about relationship red flags that matched whatever minor issue I'd mentioned. Once, after I told him my girlfriend and I disagreed about where to spend Christmas, he sent me 3 different articles about how holiday conflicts predict divorce. "Just thought it was interesting," he said. The pressure for guys' nights ramped up. Every small disagreement became a reason I needed to get away from the stress. One Friday, he was especially insistent. My girlfriend had gotten a promotion that week, and instead of being happy for us, he kept saying I looked tired and asking if I felt left behind by her success. At the bar, he wouldn't drop it, kept pushing beer after beer, saying I deserved someone who matched my speed. That's when something clicked. I wasn't tired of her. I was tired of him constantly pointing out problems that didn't exist. I told him I felt sick and called a ride home. Or that moment when it all clicks. Suddenly every weird interaction makes sense. Halfway there, I remembered I'd been cat-sitting for him the week before and still had his spare key. I figured I'd drop it through his mail slot, easier than dealing with him later. But when I got there, his living room light was on. His cat was probably lonely, so I went in to give her some attention. His computer was on the coffee table, screen on, showing a text conversation that was linked to his phone. I only glanced because I saw my girlfriend's name. The message preview showed him texting our mutual friend. Almost got him to admit he feels inferior about her promotion, few more pushes, and I know I shouldn't have, but I scrolled through. The conversation went back weeks. He was bragging about planting seeds and making me insecure. One message said, "He actually believes the relationship has problems now. Give me 2 more weeks." Another mentioned how he'd been testing her boundaries by showing up at her gym and her favourite coffee shop, seeing if she'd mention it to me. She hadn't, probably because it seemed so innocent. The worst part was when I scrolled up and saw he'd screenshotted a photo of us from my Instagram with the caption, "Countdown starts." It was dated 3 months ago. The audacity to literally plan someone's breakup like a project timeline. I took photos of everything with my phone, left the key, and drove straight to my girlfriend's place. I showed her the screenshots before saying anything. Her face went from confused to furious. She told me she'd felt weird about him for weeks, how he'd accidentally run into her places, always with some backhanded compliment about how she was too good for her job or brave for dating someone so laid back. My phone rang. It was him, still at the bar, asking if I made it home okay and saying he was worried about me. I put him on speaker. "Yeah, just stopped by your place to drop off your key," I said. Long pause. "Why'd you go inside?" You can practically hear him scrambling for an excuse. "Your cat looked lonely. Also, you really shouldn't leave your texts open." Silence. Then scrambling. "That's not, you don't understand the context." My girlfriend grabbed the phone. "We read it all, every word. Stay away from both of us." She hung up. I blocked him everywhere that night. The fallout was messy. He told people I'd broken into his place and gone through his computer, conveniently leaving out the content of what I'd found. 2 of our mutual friends bought his version and said I'd violated his privacy. One of them uninvited me from his wedding that summer. Another friend later told me my ex-best friend had tried the same thing with his relationship a year later, using the exact same tactics. Of course they're mad at you for finding out, not him for doing it. The betrayal actually made my relationship stronger for a while. We were more open with each other, more aware of outside manipulation. We lasted another 3 years before our careers pulled us to opposite coasts. The breakup was mutual and had nothing to do with him. But I learned something that night. The most dangerous threats to your relationship aren't strangers or obvious enemies. Sometimes they're the people who know exactly where to apply pressure because you handed them the blueprint yourself. Guess the real relationship red flag was hiding in plain sight, wearing a best friend label like camouflage. Story 2. My best friend ended our 12-year friendship for a punchline. My best friend and I had this unspoken deal for 12 years. She handled the talking, I handled the thinking. She'd turn my observations into party stories, but I never minded because she always had my back when it mattered. Until she didn't. I'd been working up courage all summer to ask out this guy from my philosophy class. When he finally said yes, I was so nervous I could barely function. Halfway through dinner, he mentioned loving obscure poetry. I panicked, tried to impress him, and blurted out this line I'd written in my journal years ago about hearts being like old library books, full of other people's notes in the margins. He went quiet, then asked if I'd just made that up on the spot. When I nodded, he said it was the most pretentious thing he'd ever heard someone say on a first date. I sat there for about 10 seconds before mumbling something about my car getting towed and literally running out of the restaurant. That panicked runaway feeling when you just can't take it anymore. I feel that punch to the gut. I drove straight to her apartment, ugly crying the whole way. She was perfect, made me tea, called him an idiot who wouldn't know real creativity if it bit him, and promised my library heart moment would stay between us. She even pinky swore, which we hadn't done since middle school. 2 weeks later, her older sister was throwing this huge beach party. My friend had been trying to get in with her sister's college crowd all summer. She begged me to come, swearing we'd stick together because she was nervous too. The second we got there, she spotted her sister's boyfriend's fraternity brothers and basically teleported away from me. I wasn't even surprised. This was standard operating procedure. Love that Houdini act. Blink and suddenly you're on your own. I was refilling my drink when I noticed people gravitating toward the bonfire. My friend was in the centre, doing her thing. I caught the tail end. And she goes completely serious. Hearts are like old library books, full of other people's notes in the margins. Dead silence. The guy literally asked if she was having a stroke. The crowd exploded. One guy spit out his beer. Another asked if her friend was a real person or if she made her up for content. That's when she noticed me. Here's what killed me. She didn't look guilty. She looked annoyed, like I'd shown up early to her surprise party. She held up her hands and said, "Oh shit, speak of the devil," which got another huge laugh. Nothing stings like realizing you're the comedic sacrifice, and the comedian resents your cameo. I left without saying anything. My phone buzzed before I even reached my car. 3 texts about how it just slipped out, and everyone thought it was endearing, and I needed to learn to laugh at myself. I texted back, "The only thing that slipped was your mask, don't contact me again." She tried calling me dramatic, tried getting mutual friends involved, even showed up at my job claiming I was overreacting to one little story. But here's the thing. It wasn't about the story. It was about watching her calculate that my humiliation was worth less than 5 minutes of strangers thinking she was funny. Turning betrayal into a punchline and then acting like you're the problem? The audacity to make you feel crazy for being hurt. The next few months were weird. Some people heard the story third hand and made swooning gestures when they passed me in the hall. But mostly people just moved on to the next drama. I joined the debate team, where being pretentious was basically a requirement. Last year I ran into her at a coffee shop. She was with a new group, telling some animated story. When she saw me, she actually waved me over like nothing had happened. I just grabbed my coffee and left. Her sister told me later that she cycles through friend groups every year or so. Apparently she always has these hilarious stories about her previous friends. I wonder which one of them is about me now. She'll keep burning through friends until there's no one left willing to laugh. Story 3. I let my best friend move in, and he secretly tried to ruin my life. When my best friend since childhood lost his job and apartment in the same month, offering him our spare room felt like the obvious choice. My girlfriend of 2 years seemed hesitant about it, but I figured she was just being cautious. Looking back, I should have listened. The first few weeks were fine. Then small things started shifting. My girlfriend stopped leaving notes in my lunch bag, something she'd done since we started dating. When I asked about it, she shrugged and said she figured I'd outgrown them. Later, my friend mentioned he'd seen her writing one and joked that most guys would find that stuff clingy after 2 years. "Just trying to help," he said. "I bought flowers for our anniversary." She thanked me but seemed confused about the timing. Turns out my friend had mentioned that morning how he'd reminded me about the date yesterday. He hadn't. I'd had it marked for weeks. But now she thought I'd forgotten until prompted. "He's quietly rewriting the script of your relationship and you're the last to know." When we planned movie nights, he'd suddenly remember urgent errands he needed help with. When she cooked special dinners, he'd have already ordered pizza for everyone. Every attempt to be alone got intercepted by some crisis only I could solve. The weirdest part was how he'd become her new confidant. They'd text constantly while I was at work. He'd tell me she seemed stressed and needed space. He'd tell her I was overwhelmed with work and didn't want to burden her with my problems. We stopped talking to each other and started talking through him. That helpful friend act is starting to feel really calculated. 3 months in, everything imploded. I'd been working overtime to save for an engagement ring, something I'd kept secret from everyone except him. One night, she broke down crying, asking why I was pulling away and if I was having doubts about us. I was blindsided. Where was this coming from? She said my friend had told her I'd been looking at studio apartments online and asking about breaking our lease early, that I'd mentioned feeling trapped. None of it was true. That's when the pattern clicked. Every single miscommunication, every moment of distance, he was the common denominator. I confronted him that night after she went to bed. At first, he denied everything, but I'd already checked our computer history. He'd been logged into his social media, and the message previews told the whole story. Months of conversations where he twisted my words, invented problems, and positioned himself as the understanding friend she deserved. The worst part was finding a draft message he'd never sent. When you finally realize he doesn't appreciate you, I'll be waiting. Finding that unsent line is the mask drop moment, the raw proof of how far he'd twisted things. He tried to spin it, said he was protecting her from getting hurt, that I'd never been serious about her, that he'd loved her first but I'd swooped in. The entitlement was staggering. In his mind, he deserved her more because he'd wanted her longer. I told him to pack his stuff and get out, now. He tried one last manipulation, texting her that I was kicking him out in a jealous rage and she should come with him for her safety. She came out of our room, read the text on his phone that he was showing her as proof of my instability, then looked at me. I didn't say anything, just pulled up the computer and showed her everything. She read for maybe 5 minutes before walking to the front door, opening it, and telling him to leave. The fake concern on his face morphed into genuine shock. He'd been so sure his groundwork would pay off. The instant she opened that door and pointed out perfect, absolutely perfect. After he left, we sat in our living room until sunrise, untangling 3 months of lies. She felt horrible for trusting him. I felt stupid for not seeing it sooner. We both felt betrayed by someone we'd considered family. We spent the next week apart, not breaking up, just processing. I stayed with my brother, she stayed with her sister. We talked every night on the phone, sometimes for hours, rebuilding from the ground up. We had to relearn how to communicate without a translator twisting everything. Some mutual friends bought his sob story about us ganging up on him. We let them go too. The friends who mattered saw through it, especially after his next roommate kicked him out for trying to break up her relationship. It took months to fully recover. We went to couples counselling, which helped us realise how easily we'd let someone else become the go-between in our relationship. We moved to a new apartment 6 months later, somewhere that felt like ours, without the ghost of that betrayal haunting the spare room. I proposed a year after everything went down. Small, private, just us, no audience, no intermediaries. She said yes. That confrontation in our living room was the moment I realised my oldest friend would destroy my entire life if it meant getting what he wanted. The kid I grew up with, who I'd shared everything with for 20 years, had been keeping score the whole time. And in his mind, I owed him. We haven't spoken since. Sometimes I wonder if there were signs I missed growing up, but honestly, I think he hid it well until he couldn't anymore. Jealousy's patient like that. It waits for the right opportunity to show its teeth. These days, we joke that our apartment has a strict no-roommate policy, but we both know it's not really a joke. Some lessons you only need to learn once. Some lessons really do stick. No more spare room, no more trusting the wrong people. Story 4. My best friend helped me move out, only to move in with my ex. My girlfriend of 4 years dumped me on a Tuesday and told me to be out by Saturday. First person I called was Jake. We'd been best friends since freshman year, practically brothers. He was furious on my behalf, even asked if she'd brought up that New Year's fight again. Should have wondered how he knew about that. Saturday came with cold rain and cardboard boxes. Jake showed up early with coffee and donuts, cracking jokes and telling me I was better off without her. About an hour in, his phone rang. He stepped outside to take it, came back looking stressed. "My sister's car died at the grocery store," he said, grabbing his jacket. "Battery's dead and she's got a trunk full of frozen stuff. I'll give her a jump and be right back to help unload." Made perfect sense. I waved him off and kept packing. The timing on that car trouble is way too neat. Jake disappearing without a text? My suspicion meter just spiked. 3 hours later, still no Jake. I'd wrestled everything into the truck alone, driven to my new place, and was digging through boxes when I realised I'd left my phone charger plugged in behind the bed. Called my ex, straight to voicemail. Tried Jake, same thing, whatever. I still had my key. The apartment was dark when I let myself in. As I headed toward the bedroom, I heard muffled voices. My ex's voice drifted out. "Just tell him your phone died." That one sentence, my stomach lurched. This is about to hurt a lot more than a missed moving day. My chest went tight. I pushed open the door. They weren't in bed together. They were sitting on opposite sides of the room, her on the bed, him in the desk chair, looking at apartment listings on his laptop. The coffee table between them was covered in paperwork. Lease applications. "What the hell is this?" Jake's face went white. He started stammering about bad timing, how they'd been talking for months, how he wanted to tell me but didn't know how. My ex just looked at me with this tired expression and said, "We were going to tell you after you got settled." That's when I saw it. A framed photo on the nightstand that hadn't been there Tuesday. Jake and my ex at some beach, his arm around her. The photo looked recent but sun-faded, like it had been displayed somewhere else for a while. That picture is the proof. This betrayal's been in motion for months. "How long?" I asked. Jake couldn't look at me. "Since February. 4 months. 4 months of double dates, game nights, him listening to me vent about our relationship problems. 4 months of him probably texting her the second I left his place." I grabbed my charger and walked out. Blocked both their numbers before I even started the truck. Later, a mutual friend told me they'd been apartment hunting for weeks, just waiting for me to move out so they could stop sneaking around. They lasted about 8 months before she left him for some guy from her gym. He tried reaching out to me then, leaving voicemails about how he finally understood what I went through. I never called back. Some bridges, once burned, aren't worth rebuilding. The breakup stung, sure. But the worst part was realising my best friend hadn't just watched my relationship fall apart. He'd been holding the sledgehammer the whole time. Jake threw away years of friendship for 8 shaky months with your ex. Some deals just aren't worth the fallout. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and check out this video next.